Welcome to Season 8 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing modern-day heroes for over a decade with my blog, and I'm excited to be sharing these inspiring conversations on our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Tens of thousands of people are diagnosed with cancer each year, and today's guest is no stranger to this fact. Toby Freeman has spent his life trying to bring awareness of this insidious disease to make sure that people know exactly what they're looking for. And he is a beautiful example of someone who's turned pain into incredible purpose. I'm so excited to share his incredible journey with us and all that he's doing to make a beautiful difference in our world. Welcome, Toby. We're so happy that you're here today to join us. I'm so excited to share with our audience all the incredible work you're doing at the Robin Cancer Trust. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very grateful to be here.
We are really excited to have you today. So before we dive into the journey, the story, the work, why don't you just start with telling us what it is that the Robin Cancer Trust does, and then we'll kind of start unpacking it.
Of course. So the Robin Cancer Trust is the UK's only testicular and ovarian cancer charity. So we cover both of those cancers under the germ cell cancer umbrella. And we do education, awareness, and support. And we do that in schools, colleges, businesses, universities, all across the country, delivering life-saving awareness talks. So we'll go in, talk to the students, have all of our very funny and very big prosthetics and really fun engagement tools that we take in, pull up the headmaster, make them check themselves in front of the class in a safeguarding way. They have a pair that they can check, and then we go out to festivals, universities, and reach students and young people there. We also reach millions of people online with our campaigns that we're pushing out constantly, and then we do support for our community as well. So we do free cancer support packs for anyone affected by those cancers anywhere in the UK, and we send out additional resources to support them during that incredibly difficult time of their life.
That is amazing. And I was saying to you earlier, Charity Matters, we typically focus on nonprofits in the United States, although we do have a really nice audience in the UK, believe it or not. We do. And but cancer doesn't matter it doesn't care where you live. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have boundaries. And so, our mission really here is to tell the stories of and to try to help the helpers and to help spread the message of the work that you're doing. And the work you're doing is relevant no matter who's listening on this planet and where they are. It's just as important. So some things just don't have boundaries, and this definitely is one of them. So I'm really grateful that you're sharing with us. So tell me about, before we get into how you started it, tell me about, did you grow up with like a philanthropic family? Did you grow up with people that were your parents modeling? And I've seen your video and I've seen your story. But did you always kind of have that, or was it something that came later? And I know we'll unpack when we talk about your brother.
So I have a terrible memory. So this was a really interesting question for me because I was trying to reflect on my youth, but I definitely think.
And you're still young, by the way.
Well,
for those that are listening and not seeing, Toby is young.
My memory's just not there anymore, though. But I would say selflessness was something that was just. I would say my parents are just so unbelievably selfless through both us and to other people. So, my mum used to head up a local organisation. There's a national charity called Bliss, and she headed up our local one. And I remember packing things and her talking to us about it and why it was so important. And my dad used to help with loads of local organizations, and they'd always get really involved in anything we were doing. I'm the youngest of three boys, so there was a lot to be done, but they were at everything we were doing, sports wise, school wise. They were at the theatre productions helping us. We did Boy Scouts and Cubs, which obviously a big part of that is giving back. You have to earn your
Absolutely.
badges.
Right.
And my dad was, over here they're called the Arcala, the leader. I don't know what they're called in the US, but they were just always there. And I just have this feeling of my parents' selflessness was something I've always been very aware of. And I would say the charity aspect for me came in when my brother was ill, and we can obviously dive into that a bit more. But we really wanted to support the organizations that helped us through that journey. So I don't want to skip too far ahead, but something I've reflected on, that catharsis, that release, that positive purpose that came through giving back whilst we were going through a really dark time. I think that helped mold our journey as a family and how we coped with what was happening to us.
You know, because I've been interviewing nonprofit founders for almost 14 years. I am a nonprofit founder, and I walk the walk, and I live the life. And 95% of the people I've interviewed have had a loss or a tragedy and don't want it to happen to the next person. 5% have had a near miss, and these are my statistics and nobody else's, just from people that I've talked to, have had a near miss and have had such gratitude that they felt like they need to do something because they're so thankful. But 100% of people, 100%, not one person said when they were young, when they grew up, they wanted to be a nonprofit founder. Not one person, not one, because it's something that happens to us. And I'm going to throw in a shameless plug. I just wrote a best-selling book called Change for Good. And I've been talking a lot about it, but really the theme of our work, your work, the people that I talk to, we are recyclers. We get handed a really bad card, and we have an opportunity how we choose to play it. And the reason I ask about how you grew up is because I think it forms how you play that hand. You know, when you see people doing good and something bad happens to you, you don't think about passing the pain down, you think about doing something good. So talk to me about your journey, and everyone I've interviewed, whether it's gratitude or tragedy, everyone has that moment, that defining moment, something happens and they know they have to do something. So why don't you share with us a little bit about your story and about Robin?
Yeah, of course. I love what you just said, by the way. I always say experience breeds empathy. I think you have to go through something to be able to empathize with it, walk a mile in someone's shoes. And, with these big traumatic things that can happen in life, a lot of empathy comes out of them. So yeah, it's a really good outpouring. So Rob was my elder brother. I have got an eldest brother as well. And me and Rob were very, very close when we grew up. So he was like my best friend as well as my elder brother. And he pretty much was the responsible adult. As we were getting older, he used to ferry me around and look after me and make sure I got to football on time and paid his subs. Soccer, sorry.
Yes. For our US people, soccer.
We won't get into that debate.
Ted Lasso's helped us all out a little bit. We're getting better about it.
Yeah, thank you. But Rob was like in his prime of his life, and he was 23, fit, gym, healthy, eating clean, training all the time, looking after his body, very health conscious. But he was diagnosed with a stage 4 mediastinal germ cell tumor, which was a testicular tumor in his chest that got to the size of a grapefruit, wrapped around his heart and his lungs. And that just hit us absolutely out of nowhere. We'd had diabetes and heart disease in the family, but no one had ever said the word cancer. And you're just not expecting it at that time of your life.
Right.
Cut a very, very long story short, Rob was 10 months through grueling chemotherapy, clinical trials, bone marrow transfusions, stem cell transplant, but just nothing worked. And we lost him 10 months later from diagnosis. And I just watched my brother go from the prime of his life to, an absolute shell of himself through everything that he'd gone through, and just withdrawed completely mentally and physically. And we were just at Christmas time thinking, what has just happened to us? How has this just happened to us?
Oh, was it this time of year that it happened?
Yeah, on the 10th.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Those anniversaries never get easier, by the way. Isn't it just it feels like yesterday, right? It's just,
Yeah.
it's right there.
The grief never changes in size, does it? Our lives just sort of grow around it. But I think the anniversaries just really hit home, and they bring everything back to you just relive the days,
It's
don't
all
you?
right there, right? Exactly.
So we were sat around the table, and we'd made a promise to Rob that we'd never let him just be a photo on the wall, and that was sort of that was something he wanted. But internally, that didn't mean we
But
were going
he
to set up
didn't
a
have
charity.
any vision or aspiration. He was
No.
just trying to deal with his pain and what he was going through, and probably didn't want to leave you guys,
100%. You know, as we hear a lot, I talk to a lot of cancer survivors, usually worried about the loved ones more than they are themselves.
Right,
And Rob, even at
right?
23, 24.
Which
just
shows
having
at the
same thoughts.
root cause how we are hardwired to care for each other. Because when you're
Absolutely.
dying, you're not worrying about yourself. You're worrying about somebody else. Right?
Yeah. Writing a letter to the family. Make sure you look after each other. This is, make sure you do this for this person, this for this person, which was. But a charity was never talked about. Rob, very handsome as he was, annoyingly so as his younger brother, hated his picture being taken, hated like being the center of attention. So it was never our intention to put him at the forefront of everything. But what we did realize was if someone as health conscious, as fit and active as Rob could be diagnosed at that later stage and ignore signs and symptoms, then there was something to be done. And during that entire year, we couldn't find any information about the type of cancer he had. Searching Google, and there was just nothing. And we just felt so alone and untethered.
Right.
We didn't want another family to feel that way. And I remember very specifically, my dad's a very pragmatic man. And he said, if we are going to do something, we need to research it thoroughly, understand what the problem is and how to fix it. And we need to create something that isn't a grief reaction. It is actually needed and can outlast us. So from day dot, we've had this. We want to be able to step away from this at some point. We want other people driving this. And there's been a beautiful 12 years of seeing this grow from.
Oh, yeah, we can talk about founder syndrome later.
Yes. Oh, constantly auditing. Am I the right person for the job?
Well,
this week, maybe.
I mean, I like to think that we're passionaries and we light the spark, and hopefully we light enough sparks and enough people. And I know you have, and we'll get to that. First of all, that I'm so sorry about your loss, but what a beautiful legacy you've created for your brother. I mean, just spectacular, absolutely beautiful. And I do think, I lost my mom. My parents were in an accident, hit by a bus. I mean, the expression hit by a bus, literally hit by a bus. My mother was killed. My parents' friends were killed, a huge accident. And I didn't have that opportunity to say goodbye, and I didn't have that time. And there's never a great exit when you're leaving this world, whether it's long and dragged out or it's like my mother. The result is the same. The pain is the same. But what you do with it is really incredible because there's millions of nonprofits, but bad things happen every day, and not everyone goes out and turns it into something great, which is also really hard to do. So talk to me about those challenges in the early days. First, you're grieving, and there's that, which is a lot. The nonprofit that I ended up starting was a year after my mom died. So I was just kind of coming out of grief when I ended up starting a nonprofit at Children's Hospital Los Angeles with friends. And I was empty. And it was really, I thought I had nothing to give, and I didn't have enough in the tank to do anything. And yet it kept filling, the tank kept getting filled up. So talk to me about the challenges, grieving, starting those kind of early days.
Yeah, I would say similar. I think going through something so horrible, and I was lucky. I was able to leave my job the day we found out Rob was terminal, and I didn't have any immediate pressure. I lived at home, and my parents gave me the space to go away and do whatever work needed to be done, researching the charity. And you got to be grateful on your support network, haven't you? There's all those people. You don't know what you're doing. You just go, I want to do this thing. And then someone goes, do you know how to build a website? And you're like, no, but that friend does. And that friend knows how to do
There's now
logo.
a book called Nonprofits for Dummies, but
Yeah.
no one that I know has read it, but it didn't exist when anyone I've interviewed has done
Yeah.
their work.
So it was, yeah, just leaning on people, asking the right questions. I think the biggest challenge was navigating the grief. I think the charity, two things saved me during that time. My now wife, who treated me with a lot of TLC and gave me the kick up the butt to go to grief counselling, which helped me deal with a lot of what happened, which is really important. And the charity, just because it gave me something to focus on. That when you're, I think that cup was empty, but actually doing something good, putting something positive out in the world, even if that's just sending a couple of emails that day or just thinking about an idea or a project you could do, just helps fill that cup up every day.
It's the most healing thing that you can do, is to help someone. It heals you in unimaginable ways, and you just think, and I think sometimes when you're grieving, you think when grief is new to you, which real grief was new to me with losing my mom, and I was 35 when I lost my mom. I kept thinking, am I being selfish? You keep thinking, am I having a pity party? Because you can't relate it to anything else. And then you think, oh my gosh, I'm just so selfish. And then you try to do something selfless, and all of a sudden you feel better. And you're like, well, that's weird. Like, how did that work? It's the most, because you're going through such extreme emotions.
Yeah.
And then you get this little dopamine hit and something good happens. And then it just keeps building upward. And you don't realize how healing it is.
Yeah, it's taking that negative and just in your brain rewiring it into a positive. And then I found the more I was talking about Rob, it's really hard at the beginning. I talk quite often about my first awareness talk, which happened, and it was a bunch of elderly ladies from our local WI. And I got to the bit about Rob and I just cried. I mean, I'm like 22 at this point, and I just couldn't stop crying. And they were lovely. They just gave me a hug, a tissue, and £200, and just sort of pat on the back. And but even
that's how it starts.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reality of founding a charity for anyone listening.
Right? But I mean, and also, I'm sure you found that when you're doing this, when you're on the right path, doors keep opening, and you can't explain it. Things keep happening, whether it's the fact that energy can't be created or destroyed, and Rob's energy is guiding you through this, or something different. But I know for us, the craziest, weirdest things kept happening that were just so unexpected that you just can't explain them. But they kept saying, go this way, go this way. This is what you should be doing. Did you have that happen?
Yeah, so we started the charity at the same time. It seemed like loads of other charities started, and then everyone was really collaborative. So we immediately got thrown into like the Testicular Cancer Network, and you get to meet all these people who have been through it or been through something similar. And then you don't feel alone because you're talking to people who have gone through another traumatic experience or have lost people. Then you get that support network, and you learn from them, and you learn loads about yourself, and then you start doing new things. And you have to, as a founder, you have to learn loads of things. Like I can do
lots of things
now, and I can video edit, and
budgets,
I didn't know any
and
of that.
boards and bylaws and all those fundraising and money.
It's just incredible, and it's an amazing opportunity for personal and professional growth as well, which is something I don't know. It's maybe that selfish bit. You do get a lot from it, and you realize you're growing as a person.
Well, we're entrepreneurs with a really messed up business model, right? Our business model relies on the kindness of others. So it's just an innately flawed model. So, I mean, here you are, you're young, you're grieving, you're starting a business with your family, you're starting a nonprofit, you're starting a charity, and yet you still have life and laundry and all these things, and you're trying to just get through. What fueled you to keep going when those days were a lot? When you had like the grief triggers, or you had those heavy moments, like what kept you going?
A very, very patient partner, I would say, for the most part.
What a great answer.
Yeah,
you're getting bonus points for that
one. Well, she's unwell looking after the kids right now, so I'm not getting any bonus points at the moment. But that
goes a long way. Having a good partner goes a long way.
It really does. And again, very privileged. My family, it gave us all something. Everyone grieves in such different ways in a family unit, right? No one talks about this.
100%.
It's really difficult. But we did have this unifying thing to be positive about during that
Right.
time. So I think that was really powerful. And family members have dipped in and out, and I'm still involved. My father's still on the board, and he loves being involved. My mum and my brother have stepped away for various reasons over the
Right.
years, but it's just been something that tethered us, because it's so easy to become so untethered in how everyone's feeling in those
Right.
moments.
Well, and you think about, I mean, we're carrying all this pain. And I always use the analogy of a trash can. My dad was in the recycling business, so I always use the analogy of a trash can, because when we were growing up, we talked a lot about pain and, your trash. Take your trash out. Like, don't kick your little sister.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with your trash? Go ride your bike around the block, or go do something with your trash. What are you gonna do with it? And what I really love is that, in collecting these stories of people like you and all the brilliant people who create these organizations, we're incredible recyclers of energy. We take just negative energy and we put it into something so beautiful that helps so many other people. And it's just the most beautiful story of recycling, right? And of just the life cycle of things. But let's talk about kind of this word that I have a love-hate relationship, and maybe it's more of a dislike relationship. The word impact. Everybody wants to know your impact, and I run a youth leadership organization by the day, and how you measure leadership is impact is not something that is very easy to do when you're filling out for grants or asking for donations or showing your donors what you're doing. And impact can be a story, and impact can be a lot of things. But you actually seem like you're doing so much on the messaging and so much on getting out there that I'm sure your impact, your numbers are probably amazing. But how do you measure impact?
Again, it's really difficult. We've spent years worrying about how do you measure awareness. So we moved into support over the pandemic. So primarily we were education and awareness based. That's why we started, because no one was covering that. We
Right.
listened to our community, and then they realized they needed more support, and we provided that service. But awareness is ethereal. You don't know. We're teaching life skills effectively. We're
Right.
going to a 15-year-old, say, check yourself for time immemorial. When you're worried, or if you found something, go to a doctor. But that could be 20 years down the line. You've got
Right.
snippets from mums and dads and occasionally older kids coming in and saying, oh, I actually did find something. Most of the time it's nothing, and occasionally, we actually found something and had an operation. Brilliant. But we've seen a dynamic shift in the UK to funders being much more amenable to anecdotal like feedback. So those real life stories having a tangible impact, rather than just searching for metrics of how do you measure this thing that we know is true. And everyone we speak to, and there's certain things, we have feedback forms for all of our talks. So we always get a percentage of everyone that does our talks giving us feedback, so we can A, improve it, but B, also measure what they knew before, what then happens after.
Right.
Everything that we put out now, but again, post-pandemic, QR codes came back. Okay, that's brilliant, because I can track a QR code.
Right.
So I can track how many people are landing at certain places in the website. So if I'm out at certain events, you can have certain links and go, right, well, 300 people from that event landed on that website. Well, I know that's an impact, but what action they're taking in the comfort of their own homes, in their baths, in their bedrooms, I don't know. What we can never track is, or we're struggling to track, is what is the end impact. Because you can't be a charity that goes to someone newly diagnosed and be like, did our resources help?
Right.
You just have to help them.
Did I save your life, or did I help you know sooner or not? No, that's the most.
My funder wants to know,
Right.
It's
I mean, right. It's so frustrating, because we're doing the work to solve the biggest problems of humanity, and yet we're being asked the most crazy questions about how we do that and how we figure it out. And it's like, we're trying to do the work. We don't have time to sit here and analyze it. It's kind of like you're trying to live your life as like the mother that didn't scrapbook. I don't have time to scrapbook my life. I'm busy living my life, right? I don't have time to cure cancer. I'm trying to get the word out. Like, everyone check out, look here.
Absolutely. Especially when funders don't want to cover core costs. If you want to cover an analyst to do that work for me, that's, another thing. But
yeah. No one wants to pay to keep the lights on, because they're just not sexy.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
sexy. They don't want their money to that, but it's important. It's how it works.
Yep.
It's how the business model was set up. So if you could dream any dream for the organization, what would that look like? Because these all start with a dream, and you cannot have a nonprofit without being a dreamer, an entrepreneur, and have a vision. That's just, it goes with the territory. And we
Mm.
are our own best and worst enemies sometimes. We start out saying, if we just save one life, if we just help one person,
Yeah,
that's, that was how we
yeah,
started with chaplaincy. If we just have
yeah,
one family that has a chaplain by their bedside at Children's Hospital, just one, and before you know it, it's
yeah.
every year the bar is raised and moved, and the goalpost is changed. And so what does that dream look like for you right now?
So I was thinking about being a bit cheeky, just saying being unemployed. That would be my
Would
absolute
that be
dream. Well,
great?
because cancer. Someone cures cancer. I don't have a job. I'd be the happiest unemployed man in the world. So aside from that, unfortunate reality that probably won't happen, at least for a while. But I would say the biggest goal for us is reaching every young person in the UK in the curriculum. So at school level, because that is where the vast majority are, and we have extra resources for different audiences if people aren't in mainstream education. But that's where we're going to have our biggest impact, because we are teaching life skills. And then if we also work with all the hospitals in the UK to make sure that anyone diagnosed has access to our free cancer support packs and ongoing resources, then from both points, from an awareness and education point and a support point, I think we have done our jobs. And we're starting that process. We're a small team. We work flexibly, remotely all across the UK. But we've had some great funding to expand our services across the UK in certain regions where no one's doing any sort of cancer awareness. So just want to make sure that we've nailed these processes, and then we can just take a model that we know works really well and just drop it in a new
Replicate it.
region. Yeah. And
I
we're
mean,
not too big a
it
country.
sounds so easy, right? It's just, you
Yes.
think
Yeah.
it's so easy when people say, "Oh, well, we just want to scale." Oh yeah, no
Yeah.
problem, right? It's the chicken, egg, money, resources.
Yeah.
It
Time,
sounds so
capacity.
simple in conversation, but the amount of energy it takes to replicate and
Yeah.
to get the word, it's enormous. I understand. It is enormous undertaking.
Yeah.
So tell me about, I mean, I obviously I would think from, I'm going to assume from just grieving in our conversation, there's been a lot of life lessons about life at
Mm.
your young age that you learned a lot earlier than most people learn. But really share some of the lessons you've learned on this journey about life, because you've had a big shift that's
Mm.
happened. I always say, growth comes in earthquakes. I'm from LA, so earthquakes and tectonic shifts are kind of the way that we have this incredible growth. You can't have loss
Mm.
without growth. They go hand in hand. Or at least you hope you grow from something so painful and you have some sort of rebirth. So what sort of lessons have you learned on this journey?
But I think that's something I reflect on quite often, because I'm very privileged. We also have a podcast called the Thrive Against Cancer podcast, where I get to interview people affected by cancer at all stages of their journeys, and loved ones and medical professionals. And I think something that comes up, we always think about the threads and the themes that connect all of the different episodes and journeys. And that gratitude for life that takes some people almost forever to understand, to just be able to step back, be like, what is important, what isn't important, how lucky I am to have whatever I have, and I feel very privileged. I've got a happy and healthy family, and everything's ticking along, so I've got no complaints whatsoever. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I am grateful to be reminded of at least every 2 weeks when our podcasts come out, because similar to yourself, you just get all of this information from everyone else, and to be able to sit and soak it up and just take that
It's
into
like
your
a
own
reset
journey.
button. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, conversations that I have with people like you, Toby, are exactly that. It's a reset. It just refocuses everything. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't care about the laundry.
Yeah.
I don't care about whatever that thing that was annoying me earlier. Like, that is not important.
Mm.
I
How
think
can
that
you sweat the
resets,
small stuff when you know how much big stuff out there in the
right?
world, and what you can do? And I think when you're around these amazing people, I can remember being in America. I went to a Stupid Cancer, great organization in America for anyone listening. And I was doing a little video with them, and there was a lady in front of me in the queue, and she turned around and she was like, "Hiya." I was like, "Hello." She's like, "Do you believe in aliens?" I was like, "Ah." And we had this conversation. We were just talking, and I was like, we had this conversation about whether we did or didn't believe in aliens. We both
Right.
landed on yeah, probably. And I was like, "No time for small talk then today?" She went, "No, I'm dying. I don't have any time for small talk. I've got terminal cancer." And I was just like, I just take that with me everywhere. I'm like, what is the point in
Right.
small talk? Why are we doing this? Just talk about all the big things, because anything could
Right.
happen, you know?
Well, I've been doing a lot of public speaking with the book lately, and really the thing that I kind of my takeaway is exactly that. Why aren't we reverse engineering our life? Because at the end of our lives, and it's not about what people say at our funeral, because I don't really care. I'm dead. It doesn't matter what they say. I'm not doing this for a good eulogy, but it's how we live, right? It's how are we living, and how are we making choices with our time to live with what matters. And when we look at our time, are we spending 99% of it at work?
Mm.
How much are we spending with our family and our children and people we love and doing things we enjoy? I mean, yes, we have jobs and we have to pay the bills, and those things happen. But just really looking at, as we make choices, especially as we're entering a new year and we're setting kind of goals, thinking about what we're grateful for and then how we spend our time with that. I think you are my people, Toby. I agree with you
I
completely.
love it. And I'm sure you're the same. I love being able to take that ethos and being able to build that into the organization as well. Because we have a real human first. We're all flexible. We're all remote. That's really nice in this world. But also, we have unlimited mental health days. Just talk to us. Just being able to spread that message of like, you're a human first.
Right.
The work happens after. You need to be your best self to do your best work. How can we facilitate that? And just taking that, what you do for yourself, and as a leader, being able to filter that down into an organization and know that the branches of that can keep growing and growing. That's it's a real privilege.
That's beautiful, and it's important. And I think more employers, companies that take that philosophy, the better off we're going to be, because we all need a little bit more of that for sure. So, do you think you've changed from the little brother
Gosh,
that
yeah.
that was just kind of going through life? Do. How do you think you've changed in all of this?
I've actually been writing about this today. I Someone once asked me in an interview, "Do you think Rob would be proud of you?" I was like, "I don't think he'd be able to recognize me in a good way, probably." And similarly, you talk about energies. I think when you lose someone, you want to take the best parts of them as well.
Right.
Like my brother was a very responsible man. He really focused on his health and fitness. And for me, over the last few years, that's really become really important, putting me first. I realized I couldn't tell other people this without living it, but putting you
There's that,
first.
right?
Yeah. Project Toby comes first, family probably first, then me, then everything else. But
Right.
it's, yeah, I think I've just taken, it feels like a 180. The way I was very young. I try not to beat myself up. I didn't handle that year of Rob being ill, Rob's death. I didn't handle that very well. I am so lucky to have the people around me that got me out of that and put me on a good path. The charity has given me purpose, and that has defined me as a person. That has helped me be responsible. Like you said, all of the things, you're so responsible in a charity. You have to be so transparent.
Right?
You have to,
It's a lot.
it's a lot.
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
And, having soaked up so much life experience, having been through it and been around people that have been through even more, it just has completely defined who I am. And I'm so grateful for that, and to have that opportunity to be who I am. I'm really proud, and I think my brother would be. And I think that's a really nice. I mean, he loved me anyway. I don't know why. He was always my biggest cheerleader.
That's what
But
brothers do. I have 3
yeah,
boys. That's just what they do.
in
That's
between
that's how
punches
you
and
guys are
kicks.
wired. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of hazing and
yeah,
a lot of ribbing that you give one another, but
yeah.
that's the beauty of boys. I mean, I have 3 boys, and let me tell you, but the love is real. There's
It is.
a lot
Yeah.
of jokes, a lot of giving each other a really hard time, but that's how you guys show each other love. That's the way
So true.
it works, right?
So true.
Well, I think that is beautiful. So tell us how we can support you, how we can get involved, how we can spread the message. We definitely have people that can do social media and help and get the word out for you. Doesn't matter where you are in this world, you have a platform to spread
Absolutely.
the messages. So talk to me, Toby.
Thank you. Well, first off, could I shout out a couple of a great American, in case anyone's listening about
Sure,
testicular cancer?
absolutely.
Testicular Cancer Foundation and Testicular Cancer Society are two amazing charities in America if anyone wants to support a more local non-profit. But we can be found at therobincancertrust.org, online at RCT Charity on all social medias. You will not miss us. There will be giant testicles and angry ovaries immediately. You can find me at Toby Talks Bollocks on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and LinkedIn as well. But if anyone wants to support a cause, we'd be incredibly grateful. You know, if anyone in the UK can help us with educational talks in schools, colleges, businesses, we just love coming in and giving impact. We don't ask for money. We don't ask for anything but your time. Just let us do our thing, and we can relationship manage afterwards with everyone and keep in touch and put opportunities their way. But we're a great introducer, I say, because you can feel good about introducing us to your local schools or local companies that have CSR wellbeing speakers in. We fit right into that, and it helps us reach our core demographic, helps raise awareness, could save a life, and yeah.
I love it. Well, Toby, I know your brother is very proud of you. I am so thrilled to know you and to share your story and to be able to share with our audience really the incredible work you're doing that is relative, like I said, anywhere on this planet, wherever you are listening. So thank you for being a brilliant recycler, for taking pain and turning it into a beautiful purpose, and for sharing all your incredible work. We're just so grateful.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed talking to our guest, Toby Freeman, about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think his comment of experience breeds empathy was so inspiring and true. To learn more about modern day heroes like Toby, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your family and friends. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It is the greatest gift. But more than that, thank you for caring, for believing in goodness, and for being part of our movement of change for good. You are exactly what the world needs more of. Remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity matters.